Kevin, how'd you get your start and what influenced you in the beginning?
I grew up in a very musical household in the sense that my sisters were listening to Earth, Wind and Fire and the Jacksons and the Silvers. My mom was listening to the Motown sound. My father, on the other hand, was listening to gospel music because he was a choir director for 25 years prior to becoming a deacon, prior to becoming an evangelist, prior to becoming a pastor, which he did for 32 years. So I had a plethora of music going on in my head, but also in the house. So I was always listening to different styles. And ironically, I really didn't have a musical identity until I got to high school. At which point I started hanging around the band room and the orchestra room, listening to the jazz guys and listening to their interpretations, and then asking who their influences were. And that's when I started discovering music for myself. And I learned from wherever I could learn. And I became a musical sponge, and sitting in my back room by myself with my upright piano until I just got what I wanted. And as a producer, I now realize that all that music that was embedded in my mind came out in my productions. The Earth, Wind and Fire horns, the strings from the Gamble and Huff sound, some of the old time samples and drum programming, and of course even the gospel from Mahalia Jackson to Thomas Dorsey to James Cleveland. All of those styles have really shaped and developed who I am today. My training came in from learning those standards, the hymns of the church, which is a lot of musicians today don't know hymns of the church. And if we do know the hymns, we try to play jazz chords in those hymns instead of keeping them pure, which I frown upon. Learn the song as it's written, and then embellish it if you need to, but the purity of the song is the beauty of the song. We're losing some of the traditional music of our time, and some of the great songs of the church, some of the great hymns of the church are lost and probably won't be revisited because we're so busy questing, trying to go forward instead of holding on to some of those things as well.
So Kevin, where do you see gospel music today compared to where it's been?
Gospel music has transformed through the years. When we think about Professor Thomas Dorsey, somebody from Chicago. James Cleveland was also from Chicago. I'm from Chicago. Chicago was a rich musical heritage for gospel music. But Thomas Dorsey gave us Precious Lord and another, I want to say 1,000 songs. He gave us 1,000 songs, but most of his songs, what I like about Thomas Dorsey's music was he came from doing jazz and switched over to gospel, whereas what we're doing now is trying to start in gospel and switch over to other genres of music. But from where he gave us gospel music with Precious Lord, he wrote that as he watched his house burn down and his wife and child were inside. Yeah, Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, help me stand. I'm tired, I'm weak, I'm worn. James Cleveland kind of took what Thomas Dorsey gave and put a beat to it, put a little more soulfulness into it, put choirs around it, and started singing songs like Peace Be Still and oh my God, he wrote another 500 or so songs. Gave us about half of the body of work that Thomas gave us. And then coming alongside of James Cleveland were guys like Andre Crouch, who was from the West Coast. So he gave us a whole different flair. He was able to go traditional, but his style was more contemporary than traditional. But he also wrote songs like The Blood Jesus shed for me way back on Calvary. But then you fast forward, he also wrote songs like This Is Another Day, The Lord Has Kept Me. This is another day, a whole nother swing. And I tell people this all the time, gospel musicians are some of the most talented musicians in the world because we have to learn stuff on the fly. Classical musicians don't have to learn on the fly. When you go into a classical session, the music is there for you. What you're going to do for the season is already mapped out. You just kind of move with it. Gospel, listen, mother step up to the mic and start singing a song you never heard before. You got to play that song. The deacons step up to the mic and sing a song you never heard of. You got to play that song. The choir sings different music every week. Every 7 days is Sunday. So you got a concert going on every 7 days that you have to be prepared for. I wanted to take my gift as far as God would allow me to take it. I want to, as John Maxwell says, die empty. When I leave this earth, I don't want to have anything else left inside of me musically, or literary-wise, or even as a speaker. I want to be able to deposit everything that I have into the earth so somebody else can take my message and continue to run with it.
Kevin, how can people get in touch with you or learn more about you? Do you have a web presence?
My website is www.kevinbond.com. That's Kevinbond, like James Bond. I get that every day.